Hello Galactic family. In the year 2017, a long-standing confidence crisis in training will be cropping up all over the world. This will have far-reaching consequences for us as individuals and for our entire planet. Keep reading to understand what this means, why we should care, and what we as divine change agents can do to make a difference. As you read, too, you will learn about the seeds of hope being planted in 2017 and what they mean to you. Confidence crisis. Firstly, some information about the crisis of confidence that we face. This energy of distrust is more primordial than evolutionary, resulting from conditioning based on the fear of humanity. In other words, it is very ancient and more tribal than inclusive. Tribalism has been with us through the ages, but in the last few decades since the 1990s, the tribalist we and they mentality is having a major resurgence. Examples: Brexit, the US elections of 2016, violence in the Middle East driven by old tribal structures, extremist Islam, reflecting a tribal mentality that involves warrior pride and hate-fueled jihadism, corrupt commercial practices including bribes, and a trend general of the superpowers to believe that it is their role to facilitate regime change in other countries. Regardless of how tribalism manifests itself, it poses a threat to a peaceful and loving world. A tribal mentality is black and white, with a narrow sense of belonging. Anyone outside the group is suspect, not to be trusted, and a threat. Building trust and cooperation among tribal groups is very difficult. Meanwhile, mistrust fuels division and makes people feel even more separated from each other. Discount and division. Mistrust is a learned response based on fear. People learn to distrust others who are not like them, do not think like them, or do not practice the same religion. Often, this mistrust is in the ancestral DNA, stemming from centuries-old experiences. Example: when I do sessions of intuitive personal DNA healing for someone trying to deal with discrimination, often intuitively, I see DNA-level patterns appear in the energy field around the DNA. We can then trace things back to the times when the person's ancestors were affected by religious intolerance, class discrimination, or racism. Being able to see where this comes from and cure it at the genetic level for ancestors is a powerful antidote to current personal struggles with discrimination. Change in what and who we trust. As our society has become more polarized and everyday life more insecure, there has been a change in what and who we trust. In the last century, for example, it was more common to place our trust in institutions such as governments, banks, the health system, and international forums. Today, with such declining confidence and new technologies available, we are more likely to trust others outside the system, even strangers. Examples: many now use technologies like Lyft and Uber for tours, Airbnb for hotels, WebMD and Mayo Clinic applications and websites for health assessments, and mobile applications for blood pressure and heart rate readings. Having a growing variety of life tools out of the norm has countless benefits and can help us take control of things we used to delegate to others. A bonus: as educated consumers, we reclaim our power and become more actively engaged in managing our lives. A red flag if we label systems established as intrinsically bad in a black and white way. Our linear thinking can be counterproductive. No traditional system is completely bad or good. There are shades of gray. Sometimes we really need to go to a doctor and use the services of a bank. Government agencies and police forces carry out the essential services necessary for a stable and viable society. In short, if you realize that you distrust institutions, Be open to seeing both good and evil. System reforms and impractical institutions can occur when problems are brought to light and conscious citizens use their voices and actions to effect change. When we do not do this, the crisis of mistrust increases. Discount and division. Distrust and division go hand in hand. We see it every day in society. Distrust appears in countless ways, such as racism, gender bias, intolerance, national extremism and religious intolerance. The division follows, people feeling separated by race, sex, class, religion or political opinions. Contributor factors. When people are scared enough and misinformed or misled by propaganda, they are vulnerable to control and manipulation by those in power. In such circumstances, people can be persuaded to accept unimaginable atrocities and loss of liberty. People can be influenced by false news and a distortion of facts, feeling divided against their neighbors and even in their own families. In extreme situations, people will kill themselves. There are countless examples of this throughout human history, including the next phase of history that humanity is now creating moment by moment in the present time. Response to confidentiality. When the tide of society turns to mistrust on a sufficiently large scale, people may respond with anger or apathy. If people feel that their voice is not heard by political decision makers, they can withdraw from active involvement in typical channels such as voting or peaceful protests. This is usually an emotional response, and it is self-sabotage because personal power is delivered unconsciously. A group of people deprived of power is even more susceptible to control and abuse by those in power. Tyrants and power-hungry leaders who seek to make their mark on the world can take advantage of the emptiness created by a powerless, silent population. Unsuspecting people may even see unscrupulous leaders as saviors as if they were the only ones able to fix things. In a suspicious society, people can be convinced of falsehoods by politicians, media or special interest groups who know how to craft a disinformation campaign. This has happened throughout history. However, today the potential negative impact is substantially greater than ever. People often receive their news online through information disguised as facts. A lie told over and over again over weeks or months can be accepted as true. It is as if the public becomes insensitive to information, reacting unconsciously to it without question. Cycles of discount. Throughout history, we have had cycles of mistrust, followed by moments of trust and collaboration. Examples: Italy's notorious dictator Mussolini in the 1920s capitalized on mistrust and used propaganda to fuel his rise to power, founding fascism, dismantling the constitutional limits of his power and creating a political state. From 1941 to 1945, the Nazis under Hitler systematically carried out a mass genocide of Jews. The UN in 1948 adopted a universal set of human rights, sending a signal to oppressive leaders that disrespect for human rights is intolerable. The International Space Station, launched for the first time in 1998 to study Earth and space, was made possible by a trusting partnership between several countries. The tide turned abruptly on September 11, 2001 with terrorist attacks on U.S. soil, leaving a mark of mistrust still witnessed today. Distrust of crisis proportions does not appear overnight, but develops in a gradual process as people lose confidence in each other and in the very institutions that keep things going. In an atmosphere of mistrust, society does not function well. Without trust and cooperation, basic things like markets and long-term planning are compromised. Chaos reigns, slowing progress in addressing fundamental issues that affect not only the quality of life but the sustainability of life on Earth. Examples: climate, peace and global resources. The personal level, what is happening in society is not just something outside of you. There is a very personal level involved. It's about you and everyone you love. Here are some examples to help you understand the great scene. As you are reading this part, too, keep in mind that this personal level applies to countless people all over the world. Some may be in your family or in other circles. Some may be strangers. They all represent some part of the whole, now being launched around the world as a crisis of mistrust. Everyone, including you, needs your love and compassion. In the first place, it is not easy as an individual to live in a society that does not function well due to division and mistrust. Routines of daily life can be disrupted because of the continuous intensity, uncertainty and dramas that are often of a surprising nature. Not knowing what will happen next can keep you on the sidelines. The unknowns are now larger than most of us experienced in this life. If you are an empath, feeling the chaotic and nervous vibe of society, those times can be even more challenging. Secondly, you are probably processing your own pieces of mistrust. Some are influenced not only by recent events, but by past life influences recorded in their DNA. You may distrust certain individuals, categories of people, or those who serve society in fundamental roles. Examples of people: politicians, wealthy people, lobbyists, journalists, police and other authority figures. Examples of institutions and businesses: government, media, multinationals, large retailers and things that represent the status quo. Third, living in a climate of mistrust can catalyze personal doubts and a deeper soul that pursues your life purpose and how you accomplish it. Any tendency you have previously had to distrust of yourself and your decisions can be magnified in this cycle. One way this could occur is an increase in concern about the future. You cannot trust that things will improve, or that things will improve for you personally. When faced with a deadline for making a life-changing decision, you may distrust yourself to choose the right option. Fourth, a world full of mistrust and division may seem insecure. There are numerous reasons why you may feel insecure. A great fear of many people is a possible terrorist attack. It is also common to feel insecure about potential identity theft or bullies. In places with the recent regime change bringing leaders of the dictatorial type to power, people are insecure about preserving their freedoms. And, of course, in the background for people everywhere is the concern for world peace and the tenuous nature of preserving it given the number of hungry leaders of power. Fifth, a climate of mistrust between countries may have a negative impact on the economy and its standard of living. Example: a tribal mindset for trade has historically backfired. In 1930, after the U.S. stock market crash, the United States enacted the Smoot-Hawley Fair to raise taxes on imports. The idea was to avoid cheap imports and create jobs. This had the opposite effect. American consumers had to pay more for imported products, and the economy took longer to recover from depression. Sixth, the resurgence in tribalism is likely to bring to the surface the old unresolved patterns of discrimination of humanity in all its forms. This supreme mistrust of the other might involve such things as race, religion, gender, national identification, and sexual orientation. You cannot personally experience discrimination. However, you probably know of someone affected. As long as discrimination exists, the loving world that we all want cannot manifest itself fully. Seventh, Countries with tribal disputes may delay or even reverse progress in dealing with climate change. What this means on a daily personal level is the more extreme climate, increased air pollution, adverse health effects, rising sea levels impacting densely populated coastal areas, extinction of species and a planet that is becoming less sustainable for future generations. What you need to follow. With a crisis of mistrust that gives color to everyday life, it is imperative that we, as agents of divine change, take an active part in transforming our world and our way of life. This is not the time to take a back seat and watch in silence while leaders rule through legislation and executive orders. We need a voice. Elements of a democracy. Democracy works and defends freedoms when citizens are actively involved. This means that people become educated about issues and candidates before the elections, vote, observe how leaders conduct government business, and feel free to criticize leaders without reprisals. Criticism can take the form of peaceful protests. Citizens are allowed to meet freely to discuss points of view. Elections are free and fair for all. A viable democracy has a free press with regular access to government officials and leaders. The ruling government does not censor specific information, news sources or journalists. Agents of divine change, making a difference. Here are suggestions to make a difference in 2017 and beyond. As a divine agent of change, you are now alive to make changes to a more loving world. You are at the forefront of the massive change happening now. This paper is actually encoded in your own DNA. Having this role means you are at the forefront of change, experiencing many things before others do, and helping to lead the way. In fact, you are at your best when you are actively involved in your role as divine change agent. What you can do in 2017. Keep yourself aware and aware of yourself, including your thoughts, emotions and actions. Extend that awareness out of you to other people and world events. Remember daily that your energy matters, and use that energy for good. No matter how things look crazy, remind yourself daily that you are not a victim. You are a conscious being, co-creating your own reality and your world. Use your thoughts and actions constructively to make a difference in things big and small. Be the one in your circles who smiles, finds humor in the bizarre, and applies kindness. Do not give up on yourself or humanity as a whole. Strive to see good in yourself and in others. Do this even when you focus on someone you do not like. Do this for yourself after you have had a bad day and feel discouraged. Remembering the basic goodness of all people helps you to continue through difficult times. Deal better with unknowns and fears about the future by turning to yourself in the present. No one knows with certainty exactly what will happen next, on a personal level or in the outside world. On a quantum level, there are endless possibilities for how tomorrow will be. Rest your mind, then, and focus on the present moment. Treat it as the precious time it really is. Troubled about what you see in the outside world? Get in touch with your feelings and why you have them. Once you are aware of your feelings, turn your criticism into benevolent action. Instead of simply complaining to others, find your positive voice of change and act as a citizen of the world. Transmit your thoughts within your community, at a basic level in your country, and to the political leaders who represent you at all levels of government. As you express your opinions, visualize your words being received and fulfilled. Become the one who helps repair the division through conscience and peaceful actions. Invite a knowledge of the causes and places that most need you in this role. Add power to your role with daily visualizations and intentions, seeing yourself as a bridge builder and peacemaker. Be vigilant about your intake of information and apply a healthy skepticism. Avoid being misled by false news and political propaganda, becoming cunning in digesting news. Decelerate, be present and question what you hear. Get your news from multiple sources. Insist that they be trustworthy, with multiple named credit sources that you can validate. If something seems too strange to be true, this should be a large red flag to check the information. Fair news will not only report one side. A fair story will be present. Observe stories that recycle information or photos that create prejudices. Most likely, we will be witnessing a series of unprecedented events in 2017. Some may be shocking, some simply astonishing. A major underlying theme throughout the year will be unpredictability. Keep reading to find out the seeds of hope that really exist side by side with the clutter. Find out what these mean to you. Future seeds of hope. Regardless of how things get strange in 2017, life will continue. Your plans and projects can be re-energized in the new energies. Potentials of spiritual transformation can be amplified with great speed. Relationships, new and current, may manifest more favorably to you and your way. A good point in 2017 is the potential for new beginnings. The energies will support this. On a personal level, think of it as a blessing to your life and what you want to manifest. Even your established successful projects could benefit by adding something to the mix, as an additional collaborative partner or a new specialty that adds to what you already have. Relive a current relationship by finding an additional shared focus or introducing new ways of being with one another. A second point in 2017 involves the change and its response to that change. The acceleration of change is not diminishing. Change is like a palpable force that stimulates the transformation of all things that need to evolve. Interestingly enough, while we human beings are conditioned to dislike change, when the momentum of change becomes supercharged and we perceive that we are better at following with it, we find ourselves at a beneficial turning point. At this stage, the sheer force of that momentum ironically can make it easier to adapt and evolve. Think of this year as a crucial time to build a new infrastructure for your life, internal and external. Energies support this. When you focus on the details of what you want to create, you will be sowing seeds of hope for your neighbor and your near future and your long-term future. This type of seed planting is already happening during these unique moments on Earth. Humanity as a collective is regularly planting the seeds of the following creations. The key to you now is to become aware of your personal role in planting. It is you taking charge in your new directions. It is you who accept your quantum power to create, change creations, and invent new ones. This is big. Doing so is what your soul wants for you. You are not a gear in a machine, or a hub in the wheel of evolution humanity. You are an eternal divine being that you can create in unlimited ways. Trust that. Trust your ability to make a difference. Trust in the power of your love to feed the next perfect steps into your life. Trust in the divine voice within you that knows the truth. Know beyond any doubt that you are destined to be on earth now with a great purpose that only your soul fully understands. Trust that this is valid, and let Him guide you step by step throughout the year.